The sun was warm that afternoon, and laughter from children echoed through the park. A single black father pushed his little girl on the swing, her giggles filling the air, a rare, peaceful moment in his busy life. But peace shattered when two police officers stormed in, shouting orders as if danger hid beneath the playground. In seconds, his joy turned into humiliation, his daughter crying as they shoved him to the ground. Parents watched but stayed silent. The man didn't fight back, though his badge, hidden under his jacket, could have stopped them all. They saw only his skin. They had no idea they'd just slapped an FBI agent watching them. Before that humiliating afternoon, Malcolm Hayes was simply a devoted father trying to rebuild a life torn by loss. A widowed man in his late 30s, he had learned to balance two worlds, the warmth of home and the cold vigilance of his work as an FBI field agent. His wife Maya had been a nurse who always reminded him that compassion was strength. When cancer took her 2 years ago, the only light left in his world was their daughter, little Ava. Every Saturday the park became their sanctuary, the one place where the weight of the world seemed to lift off his shoulders. Malcolm was careful not to flaunt who he was. He dressed simply, spoke kindly, and kept his badge tucked away. To anyone watching, he was just another single dad with tired eyes and a heart still learning how to smile. What no one knew was that he had been investigating a series of police misconduct reports in the area. Quiet, methodical work that required patience and observation. Ironically, the very precinct he was monitoring had been under scrutiny for racially charged behavior. That day, he'd brought Ava to the park early, hoping she'd get a few hours of laughter before heading home to her drawings and bedtime stories. He sat on the bench, coffee in hand, watching her run toward the swings, her curls bouncing, her smile pure. For once, he wasn't Agent Hayes. He was just Dad. And as he watched her play, he never imagined that within minutes, those same officers he was quietly investigating would mistake his calmness for defiance, and his skin for threat. The world was about to show his daughter a side of America he had prayed she'd never have to see. It started with a single shout. "Hey, you! Step away from that bench!" Malcolm turned, confused, as two officers approached, their hands already on their belts. One was tall, broad-shouldered, with mirrored sunglasses that reflected nothing but authority. The other younger, eager, almost trembling with self-importance. Their squad car was parked crooked near the curb, its lights flashing needlessly in the calm park. Parents froze. A mother pulled her toddler closer. The air thickened with unspoken fear. Malcolm stood up slowly, palms visible, voice calm. He'd spent years training others how to de-escalate conflict. But here, his tone, his posture, his very existence seemed to challenge them. The older officer barked, "We got a call about a suspicious man watching children." The words hit like ice water. Ava clung to her father's leg, tears welling in her wide brown eyes. "Daddy, what's happening?" she whispered. He knelt down, brushing her curls aside. "It's okay, baby. Daddy's right here." The officers weren't interested in calm explanations. They demanded ID, ignoring his quiet compliance, talking over him, circling like wolves who'd already decided on guilt. He handed them his wallet, still trying to keep his voice steady. But as soon as he reached into his pocket, the younger cop yanked his arm, shouting, "Stop resisting." He wasn't resisting. He was breathing. Existing. The next moments blurred into chaos. One officer shoved him onto the grass, pinning his face to the dirt. Ava screamed, her tiny hands pounding against their vests as she begged them to stop. A bystander filmed but said nothing. Others turned away, their silence a shield against discomfort. Malcolm could feel the sting of humiliation burn deeper than the scrape on his cheek. His mind raced, not with fear, but with calculation. His training urged patience, control. He knew revealing his badge too early could compromise months of undercover work. But as his daughter's cries grew louder, something inside him cracked. The senior officer muttered, "You people never learn." Those words, "you people," echoed louder than the sirens, louder than the gasps of onlookers. They carried centuries of history in just 2 words. Malcolm lay still, tasting the bitter metal of rage and restraint. He'd seen prejudice before, but never like this. Never with his daughter as witness. When they finally let him sit up, his hands trembled. Not from weakness, but from the storm he was containing. He looked around and saw every face avoiding his gaze. The park that once held laughter now pulsed with shame. They still hadn't asked his name. That was the breaking point. Slowly, deliberately, Malcolm reached into his jacket. The officers tensed, shouting warnings, until he pulled out a black leather badge holder and flipped it open. The golden emblem of the Federal Bureau of Investigation gleamed in the sunlight. The silence that followed was heavier than any sound. Children stopped crying. The officers' expressions drained of color. One stepped back, stammering, "Sir, we didn't realize." Malcolm's eyes locked onto theirs. Calm, cold, and unflinching. He didn't need to speak. Every second of their stunned silence was justice brewing. And though they didn't know it yet, every move they'd made was already captured, not just on a bystander's phone, but on the hidden camera inside the pen clipped to Malcolm's shirt. The park had gone completely silent, the kind of silence that feels like a collective heartbeat waiting to restart. The officers stood frozen, their arrogance dissolving into panic as they realized who they had just assaulted. The badge gleamed in Malcolm's steady hand, its presence transforming the scene from ordinary injustice to professional catastrophe. He rose slowly, every movement deliberate, commanding, controlled. The grass clung to his clothes, the mark of their hands still red on his skin. But his eyes, calm and unblinking, carried a weight that silenced excuses before they could form. "I asked for your ID," one officer stammered, trying to sound composed, but his voice cracked under the weight of guilt. Malcolm didn't respond. He simply brushed off his jacket, checked on Ava, and turned on the small recorder clipped near his collar. The younger officer's eyes widened. He knew exactly what that meant. Every second of their abuse had been recorded. The shove, the insults, the words, "You people." The Bureau's own field evidence system automatically uploaded the footage the moment he activated it. There was no deleting it now. One of the parents, emboldened by the shift in power, began to speak up. "He told you to stop," she said shakily. Another murmured agreement. The crowd's silence began to break, shame turning into support. Malcolm straightened his back, his tone level but cutting. "You were under investigation," he said quietly. "Now you're part of the report." No shouting, no anger, just the cold, precise truth, the kind that couldn't be denied or rewritten. Ava reached for her father's hand, her tiny fingers trembling. Malcolm squeezed gently, whispering something only she could hear. A promise that she was safe. As they walked away, the entire park seemed to part for them, people stepping aside not out of fear but out of awe. The same man they'd just watched be humiliated had now revealed the quiet power of dignity, the kind that doesn't scream. It stands. And in that moment, everyone present learned. Justice doesn't always need sirens. Sometimes it wears a father's calm. The next morning, the story broke everywhere. A viral video titled "Cops Assault Black Father at Park, Turns Out He's FBI" flooded social media. Millions watched in disbelief as the footage showed every second of the injustice, every cry from his daughter, every cruel word spoken. The public outrage was immediate and unrelenting. By noon, the department released a statement calling it a misunderstanding. But the truth didn't need their spin. The evidence spoke louder than apologies ever could. Malcolm didn't bask in attention. He never wanted to be a headline. He wanted to be a father. Yet as the media storm grew, people across the country reached out, sending letters, videos, and messages of support. Parents said they held their kids tighter that night. Officers wrote privately, ashamed, promising to do better. Even Ava's school held a moment of silence, not for loss, but for awareness. Weeks later, the same officers who had humiliated him were suspended pending investigation. One resigned quietly. The other publicly apologized. Not to save face, but because, for the first time, he understood. Malcolm returned to the same park months later, holding Ava's hand. The grass had grown back, the laughter of children filled the air again. But something inside him had changed. The pain was still there, yes, but so was purpose. He'd seen how one moment, one injustice could ignite an entire conversation about race, respect, and restraint. He looked at his daughter, smiling as she ran ahead to the swings. For her, that park was laughter again. For him, it was a reminder that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it breathes, quietly, through grace. Before leaving, he glanced once more at the empty bench where it all began. A small plaque had been placed there, donated by the community. It read, "For every father who stayed calm when the world refused to see his worth." Malcolm smiled softly. Justice, at last, didn't need noise, only truth. If this story moved you, don't scroll away without sharing it. Like, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe for more real, powerful stories that remind us silence protects no one.